Greetings everyone! Welcome to Open Your Reality. I just want to make a brief video today sharing what I've been thinking about recently and what I'm up to. First, it's great to see that my recent video on how our universe is rendered is doing so well. Many people liked it and YouTube actually threw a few extra thousand views at me. For most YouTubers in my position, a video of over 50 to 100,000 views is a success. But for me, anything over 5,000 views is a home run. So that motivates me to post more. That last video I put out took me around 15 hours to make. And I don't think there's a way to reduce the time without reducing the quality. And I want to keep the quality where it is, or actually better yet, improve it. I did try to go through the comments over the last week and responded to many of you, but I only cut into a fraction of them. Sorry if I haven't responded yet. I will keep diving into the comments with every free minute I have. Now, for those that follow my channel closely, you know I didn't post a video for about a month, spanning late April and most of May, which is by far the longest amount of time I've gone. In that period, I was busy with work-related stuff. I know I haven't talked much about what I do on this channel for a living, but it does take up a lot of my time at certain points of the year. Second, I was feeling a bit discouraged by the lack of views and the large amount of effort I was putting into the channel in February and March, where I was posting fairly often, sometimes every day or every other day, and seeing almost no change in the views. And I was feeling a little burnt out, to be candid, so the time off was needed. I'm sure you've heard YouTubers talk of burnout before. It is real. But I thank everyone for their concern in my absence and for staying with me. Alright. So now let me tell you what I've been up to. First, I just started reading Apprenticed to a Himalayan Master by Sri M. It's a book about a young man who traveled to the Himalayas to become the disciple of a high-level yogi. Those who reviewed the book on Amazon say it's replete with miraculous events and experiences and a great source of spiritual inspiration. One said that it's in the class of books such as Autobiography of a Yogi. Now, I don't think any book can ever surpass Yogananda's spiritual classic, as that to me is the #1 all-time best spiritual book ever composed. But if this book by Sri M is just half the value, I would be thrilled. When I'm done with it, I'll consider doing a review of the book on my channel. And there's another thing that I've been wrestling with in my mind, which is a subject that I've not brought up very much on my channel before. It's a very controversial subject, and usually you're either a staunch believer or very much against it. Kind of how people feel about Donald Trump. What am I talking about? I'm talking about Earth. No, not globe Earth, but yes, flat Earth. You know, in the past 2 decades, there have been 3 revelations in my life that have completely changed the way I see reality. The first one I came across is the fact that our entire reality is a simulation. And I've pretty much based this entire channel around it. I mean, my first video was called Definitive Proof We Live Inside a Computer Simulation. Now, while I was exposed to the idea that our universe was likely a hologram before even coming across simulation theory, for some reason, the simulation argument still blew my mind. I wanted to know everything I could about it, and that's how I came across Tom Campbell, who I think explains it 100 times better than anyone else I've listened to or read. Now, the second major revelation came in 2016, I believe. I was listening to the very popular Joe Rogan podcast, and he had on Misha Tate, a female MMA fighter, and at one point he told Misha that some people believe the Earth is flat, and she thought that ridiculous, as did I. But Joe told her there was even an organization called the Flat Earth Society where people all believed in it. At that moment, I did what I always do when hearing some far-out theory. I did some research. So I looked up Flat Earth on YouTube. Yup, YouTube is great for research, and this was before the censorship it imposed, so you could actually see videos where people were pro-Flat Earth. The first one I clicked on was one by a guy named Allegedly Dave, whose channel is dmurphy25, in case you're curious. It was a long video where Dave was speaking on Macedonian national television discussing the basics of flat Earth. I thought, great, I can't wait to hear the arguments this guy has. This is going to be rich. But as Dave was speaking and going through his points, my jaw started to drop. And after a few minutes, I was asking myself if flat Earth could be true. Each point he made was a small aha moment, and one even explained something I had been confused about for a very long time. And that is, why when I used to fly from New York to Thailand, did the plane always have to stop over in Alaska? It just didn't make sense. But when you look at New York and Thailand on the flat Earth map, and draw a line from one location to another, you can see it goes right over Alaska. Now, I didn't drop everything and become a flat earther after watching this one video. But some of the other interesting points Dave made is the fact that if we all live on a ball Earth, then water has to be curving, which fundamentally we know can't happen. I mean, we've never seen it happen. This is because there is a particular formula based on the size of the Earth that shows the Earth curves about 8 inches every mile. The next thing that popped out at me was that the United Nations doesn't allow anyone to visit Antarctica, and the UN's own logo is a map of, guess what? The flat Earth. I know. The last point I'll mention is one that I just can't help coming back to over and over. If the Earth actually curves the way it's supposed to, how can we actually see land masses and cities 30, 50, or even 100 miles in the distance? According to the formula I mentioned, there would be so much curvature at just 50 miles that it should be 1,473 feet below the horizon. Anyone can do the math by using the simple formula, but I double-checked myself at OmniCalculator.com, which actually has an Earth curvature calculator. This means if we were 50 miles away from, say, New York City, and looking at the Empire State Building, which is 1,454 feet to the top of the antenna, it would be physically impossible to see it, as the curvature of 1473 is taller than the building. But you can see the Empire State Building perfectly, clearly, and from a long distance away. And here, take a look at this. It's an image from the shore of Lake Michigan, showing the Chicago skyline 50 miles away. And you can see there doesn't appear to be any of it curving over the horizon. You can even make out the shorter buildings. And if you had a more powerful telescope or camera, you'd be able to zoom in and even see the bottom of the buildings, which again, according to what NASA and science tells us about the size of the Earth, would be physically impossible. Oh, you know how they explain this? They call it a mirage. Yes, I've seen it.
Ranier State Park. This is from Joshua Nowicki, and what you're seeing here is a mirage. We typically would not be able to see this from the Lake Michigan shore.
Anyway, I don't want to get too caught up on flat Earth. Frankly, I have been flirting with the idea of making a dedicated video on it, and I haven't even talked about the whole NASA and moon landing conspiracies yet. That's a whole other topic that usually goes hand in hand with flat Earth. I'm sure a small percentage of you are flat earthers anyway, as I've seen some of your comments. Frankly, I don't have a dog in the fight either way, and I mean that for everything. I just want to know the truth. But if the Earth is actually flat, then it would mean that talk of aliens, the secret space program, astrology, and pretty much all of what David Wilcock talks about is likely not true. Some of you may know a lot about flat Earth, but it basically posits Earth as a round plane encapsulated by a firmament that goes all around it, which our military and scientists have not been able to penetrate. So just like the LCS, we can't be sure of what's outside of it, or even what's underneath us. So the flat Earth was the second big revelation that occurred to me. The third is the Mandela effect, which really freaked me out when I first learned about it. It was shortly after finding out about the flat Earth. I would guess more than half my audience knows what the Mandela effect is, and if you look up the term on Google, it will tell you it's an unusual phenomenon where a large group of people remember something differently than how it occurred. It also says conspiracy theorists believe this is proof of an alternate universe. From what I see, the Mandela effect has changed not only the events of history, but geographic locations, movies, TV shows, animals, and even significant landmarks, and yes, also our bodies. One of my favorite Mandela effects is the Great Wall of China. I'm sorry, I meant the Great Wall of India, which we all learned about in school, don't you remember? Google tells us it's the second longest wall in the world. And I bet if you ask 100 people on the street, 99 of them would probably have no idea about the Great Wall of India. Oh my. And there are thousands of other Mandela effects, with people finding new ones all the time. And if you want to know more about Mandela effects, I made a few videos on them. But I recommend watching the one I made called Is This What's Causing the Mandela Effect that I posted last year. So there you have it. The 3 great revelations of my life, all of which took place in the last 12 years or so. I would again hesitate to call these personal revelations. They're more like revelations in the quest for truth. Again, I'm not here to take sides and persuade you to join one side or the other. I'm just always searching for the truth. I'm alive past 7. It's just my nature. That's why I started this channel. And I just frankly want to know. Look, I'm fairly certain we live in a simulation. I'm 99.9% sure. I'm also fairly certain the Mandela effect is real, and things have actually changed. It's not just the result of poor memory. As for Flat Earth, the jury is still out for me. I've been wavering back and forth since I learned about it about 5 years ago, but I've never quite talked about it this candidly on my channel before. Guys, I know some of you might think it's bro science, but if you listen to the videos I've been watching, they all but put a nail in the coffin of a globe Earth reality. It's that convincing. And the NASA cover-up is just as interesting to me. I'm curious what your thoughts are on Flat Earth. If you've looked into it and have an opinion, let me know in the comment section. I'd really like to know how many of you believe in it and why or why not. You could just be as brief as you want. Like I said, I've been pondering the idea of doing a longer video talking about all the selling points of Flat Earth. And if that interests you, you can also let me know in the comments. By the way, I saw a lot of questions in the comment section this week, so I may do a Q&A soon. Well, I hope you enjoyed this one and will consider supporting the channel. Links are below for everything, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.